The crimson warning lights of Ketharus' ship bathed her scaled features in an ominous glow as she studied the holographic display floating before her. 8 months. 8 months of humiliation that had turned the galaxy's most feared bounty hunter into a laughingstock among her peers. The Scran Council had stopped returning her communications. Her own clutch siblings whispered behind her back, all because of one unremarkable human who had somehow made her an apex predator whose species had dominated. The galactic food chain for 3 millennia looked like a hatchling chasing shadows. Target acquired, her ship's AI announced in its cold, mechanical tone. Human designation, Jake Morrison. Location, Kepler Station, Sector 7G. Ketharus' forked tongue flicked out, tasting the recycled air for any trace of emotion. There was none. She had learned to suppress her feelings after the 3rd failed capture, when her prey had somehow escaped from a sealed cargo hold, by convincing the automated systems that he was a maintenance droid. The memory still made her inner eyelids twitch with suppressed rage. She flexed her claws, each one capable of punching through starship hull plating, and reviewed Morrison's file for the 1000th time. Height, 5 feet 10. Weight, 175 pounds. No cybernetic enhancements. No genetic modifications. No military training beyond basic planetary defense service. By every metric that mattered in the galaxy, Jake Morrison was prey-soft, slow, and pathetically fragile. Yet somehow, this walking contradiction had evaded her across 3 star systems, through asteroid fields that should have crushed his inferior ship, and past security cordons that had never been breached in recorded history. The first escape had been luck. The second, clever improvisation. But 8 months of consistent evasion? That suggested something far more dangerous than luck or cleverness. It suggested intelligence. Ketharus' bioelectric senses, evolved over millions of years to track the faintest heartbeat through solid rock, had locked onto Morrison's unique neural signature dozens of times. Each time, she had closed the distance with the patient inevitability of a tidal force. Each time he had vanished like smoke, leaving behind only the lingering scent of human sweat and something else, something that made her predator instincts scream warnings she didn't understand. Docking clearance granted. Kepler Station's traffic control announced. Bay 94. Welcome to Kepler Station, Scran vessel. The massive space station rotated slowly against the backdrop of a dying red giant, its countless docking bays and commercial sectors, creating a maze of opportunities for someone who understood how to disappear. Kethara had studied the station's schematics until she could navigate them blindfolded. She knew every maintenance tunnel, every emergency exit, every possible escape route. This time would be different. She sealed her environmental suit and checked her weapons one final time. The plasma rifle would punch through any barrier Morrison might hide behind. The neural disruptor would incapacitate him without permanent damage. The bounty specified alive, though it didn't specify in how many pieces. Her natural advantages would handle the rest. Scran reflexes operated on a timescale that made most species appear to move through thick liquid. Her strength could bend steel. Her senses could track a target through electromagnetic interference that would blind lesser hunters. The docking tube sealed with a soft hiss, and Kethara stepped onto Kepler Station for the first time. The artificial gravity felt wrong too light, calibrated for the comfort of weaker species. The air carried 1,000 different scents: cooking food, industrial lubricants, the musk of a dozen different alien species. And underneath it all, the distinctive chemical signature of human. Fear-sweat. Her prey was here. Kethara's head swiveled with mechanical precision as she analyzed the crowd flowing through the main concourse. Humans, mostly, with a scattering of other species that had learned to coexist in the galaxy's commercial centers. Her bioelectric senses painted a three-dimensional map of heartbeats and neural activity, filtering through the background noise of hundreds of minds until she found the pattern. She had memorized. There. Section C. Level 7. Moving fast. She pushed through the crowd with casual brutality, her 7-foot frame parting the sea of smaller beings like a ship cutting through water. Behind her, conversations stopped and resumed in nervous whispers. Everyone knew what a Sikaran hunter looked like. Everyone knew what it meant when we're on the hunt. The maintenance access panel had been recently opened. She could smell the residual heat from human fingers on the metal. Cathara smiled, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Morrison was following his usual pattern, using the station's infrastructure like a three-dimensional maze. But this time, she had anticipated his strategy. She activated her unit. Station security. This is Cathara of the Skran Hunting Corps. I am exercising my authority under Galactic Bounty Statute 7 Alpha. Seal all maintenance access points in sections C through F. Levels 5 through 9. No exceptions. Acknowledged, Hunter. Sealing now. The satisfying sound of electromagnetic locks engaging echoed through the station's superstructure. Morrison's escape routes were closing one by one, like a net drawing tight around a fish. Cathara allowed herself a moment of anticipation. Soon, this humiliation would end. Soon, she would prove that the natural order still held meaning in a galaxy that had grown soft and complacent. She pried open the maintenance hatch with her bare claws and squeezed into the narrow tunnel beyond. Her enhanced vision adapted instantly to the darkness, painting the cramped space in shades of infrared. The tunnel stretched ahead for 50 meters before branching into a junction that connected to the station's primary life support systems. Morrison's scent was stronger here, mixed with the metallic tang of adrenaline. He was afraid. Good. Fear made prey predictable. Cathara moved through the tunnel with fluid grace, her body adapting to the confined space with the ease of a creature born to hunt in any environment. Her claws found purchase on the smooth metal walls, propelling her forward in complete silence. Ahead, she could hear the faint sound of human breathing, slightly elevated but controlled. Morrison was trying to regulate his fear response. Another sign of the intelligence that had made this hunt so frustratingly long. The tunnel opened into a vast cargo bay, its ceiling lost in shadows 40 meters above. Massive shipping containers hung suspended in zero gravity, creating a three-dimensional maze of obstacles and hiding places. Emergency lighting cast everything in a hellish red glow, and the air recycling systems hummed with mechanical efficiency. Cathara's bioelectric senses painted a detailed picture of the space around her. Dozens of automated cargo handlers moved through predetermined patterns, their simple AI minds creating a background of electronic noise. But there, moving between the containers with impossible grace, was the neural signature she had been hunting for 8 months. Jake Morrison stepped into view 50 meters away. Balanced on the edge of a shipping container, like gravity was merely a suggestion. For the first time since the hunt began, Cathara got a clear look at her prey. He was exactly as unremarkable as his file suggested, average height. Lean build, dark hair that showed the effects of months spent in recycled air. But his eyes held something that made her predator instincts whisper warnings. Not fear, not desperation, but a calm calculation that belonged on the face of a hunter. Not prey. Morrison smiled, and Cathara felt the first cold touch of uncertainty. Then he jumped. What happened next defied everything Cathara understood about physics, biology, and the fundamental nature of prey behavior. Morrison didn't fall, he flew. His body twisted through the zero-gravity cargo bay with a fluid precision that made her enhanced reflexes seem clumsy by comparison. He caught the edge of a passing cargo handler, used its momentum to slingshot himself toward a cluster of suspended containers, then ricocheted off their surfaces in a complex three-dimensional dance that should have been impossible for any creature without wings. Kethara's plasma rifle tracked his movement, but every time she had a clear shot, Morrison was already somewhere else. He moved like he had memorized the exact position of every obstacle, every automated system, every gravitational anomaly in the bay. More than that, he moved like he had choreographed this entire encounter. "Impressive reflexes," Morrison called out, his voice echoing strangely in the vast space. He was perched upside down on a container 20 meters above her, completely relaxed despite the fact that a single mistake would send him tumbling into the bay's crushing machinery. "But you're still thinking like a predator." Kethara snarled and launched herself upward, her powerful legs propelling her through the zero gravity with devastating force. Her claws extended, ready to tear through human flesh and bone. But when she reached Morrison's position, she found only empty air and the lingering scent of human sweat. "The thing about predators," Morrison's voice continued from somewhere behind her, "is that they're predictable. You see prey, you chase. You corner prey, you attack. It's elegant in its simplicity." She spun in midair, her bioelectric senses painting a detailed map of the cargo bay. Morrison's neural signature was everywhere and nowhere. Somehow he was masking his exact location while maintaining a running commentary on her failures. The impossibility of it made her inner eyelids twitch with frustrated rage. "But humans aren't really prey, are we?" Morrison appeared briefly on a container to her left, then vanished again before she could react. "We're something else entirely. Something your species never learned to hunt." Kethara fired her plasma rifle in a wide arc, the superheated energy turning metal containers into molten slag. The destruction was satisfying, but ultimately pointless. Morrison was already gone, his voice now coming from the opposite side of the bay. "We're persistence hunters, Kethara. Did you know that? Back on Earth, before we reached the stars, humans could run down prey that was faster, stronger, and better adapted than we were. We didn't need to be the fastest or the strongest. We just needed to be the most stubborn." The cargo bay's lighting suddenly shifted from red emergency illumination to strobing white. Kethara's enhanced vision, perfectly adapted to consistent lighting conditions, was momentarily overwhelmed. In that instant of blindness, she felt something brush past her, not an attack, but a gentle touch that could have been lethal if Morrison had chosen to make it so. "You've been chasing me for 8 months, Morrison continued, his voice now coming from directly above her. "But have you ever wondered why I keep running? Why I don't just find a nice quiet planet and disappear?" Kethara's vision cleared, and she found herself staring up at Morrison, who was somehow standing on the cargo bay's ceiling as if gravity had reversed itself for him alone. He held a small device in his hand, the lighting control system he had apparently hacked while she was busy trying to kill him. "Because you're not the hunter in this scenario," Morrison said quietly. "You never were." The implications of his words hit her like a physical blow. Kethara had been so focused on the chase, so consumed with the need to prove her superiority, that she had never questioned the fundamental assumptions underlying the hunt. Morrison wasn't running from her, he was leading her. Every escape, every narrow evasion, every impossible feat of human ingenuity had been designed to bring her to this moment, to this place. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice carrying the full authority of a species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Morrison smiled, and for the first time, Kethara saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. It wasn't the desperate cunning of cornered prey or the wild desperation of a creature fighting for its life. It was the calm satisfaction of a hunter who had finally maneuvered his quarry into the perfect position. "I want you to understand something about humans," Morrison said, pushing off from the ceiling and floating down toward her with deliberate slowness. "We don't just survive being hunted. We turn the hunt itself into a weapon." The cargo bay's automated systems suddenly came alive around them. Shipping containers began moving in complex patterns, their massive bulk creating a shifting maze of obstacles and opportunities. Cargo handlers changed their predetermined routes, weaving through the space with mechanical precision. The entire bay had become a three-dimensional puzzle, and Morrison was somehow controlling every piece. You see, Cathara, while you were focused on catching me, I was learning everything about you. Your hunting patterns, your psychological profile, your species' cultural blind spots. Did you know that Seacran hunters have never developed effective countermeasures against prey that fights back? Your entire evolutionary history is based on the assumption that prey runs away. Morrison landed on a moving container with casual grace, riding it through the mechanical chaos like he was surfing on solid metal. But humans don't just run away. We run toward something. And sometimes what we're running toward is more dangerous than what's chasing us. Cathara tried to follow, but the moving containers created a constantly shifting environment that favored Morrison's impossible agility over her raw strength. Every time she thought she had a clear path to her target, the machinery would shift, forcing her to recalculate her approach. It was like trying to hunt in a three-dimensional storm. 8 months ago, you received a bounty contract for my capture, Morrison continued, his voice carrying clearly despite the mechanical noise surrounding them. Standard terms, standard payment, issued by the Hegemony Council for Crimes Against Galactic Peace. Did you ever wonder what those crimes were? The question hit Cathara like a physical blow. In her arrogance, her need to restore her reputation, she had never bothered to investigate the details of Morrison's alleged crimes. The bounty was legitimate, issued through proper channels, backed by the full authority of the galactic government. That had been enough. I'm a war crimes investigator, Morrison said, his tone shifting from playful to deadly serious. And for the past 8 months, while you've been chasing me across the galaxy, I've been gathering evidence of systematic genocide committed by the very government that issued my bounty. The cargo bay fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Even the automated machinery seemed to pause, as if the station itself was holding its breath. So I'll ask you again, Cathara, Morrison said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. Why do you think I keep running from you? The silence stretched between them like a taut wire, broken only by the distant hum of Kepler Station's life support systems. Cathara's bioelectric senses painted Morrison's neural signature in stark detail, no deception, no fear, just the steady pulse of absolute conviction. For the first time in her hunting career, she found herself questioning not just her prey, but the very nature of the hunt itself. You're lying, she said. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew they rang hollow. Her species had evolved sophisticated methods for detecting deception, and every instinct told her that Morrison was speaking the truth. Morrison reached into his jacket, a coda, movement that should have triggered Cathara's attack reflexes, but somehow didn't. Instead, she watched with growing unease as he withdrew a small datapad, its surface flickering with encrypted files and classified documents. Hegemony Military Directive 7 Alpha, Morrison read aloud, his voice echoing in the vast cargo bay. Systematic sterilization of genetically inferior species to ensure galactic stability. Signed by Council Prime Velthak of the Skran Dominion. The name hit Cathara like a plasma bolt to the chest. Velthak was her clutch father, the most respected hunter in Skran history, the architect of their species' rise to galactic dominance. The idea that he could be involved in genocide was not just impossible, it was heretical. More lies, she snarled, but her voice lacked conviction. Morrison's neural signature remained steady, unshakable in its certainty. The Zephyrian colonies, Morrison continued, scrolling through the datapad with practiced ease. 47 billion sentients, eliminated through engineered plague. Official cause, natural pandemic. Actual cause, hegemony bioweapons designed to target Zephyrian genetic markers. Images flashed across the datapad's surface, orbital bombardments disguised as asteroid impacts. Plague ships masquerading as medical relief vessels. MASS graves stretching beyond the horizon on a dozen different worlds. Each image was authenticated with hegemony military codes. Each document bore the seal of the Council itself. The Terran rebellion wasn't a rebellion at all, Morrison said, his voice growing harder with each revelation. It was a rescue operation. We were trying to evacuate civilian populations before the hegemony's pacification protocols could be implemented. That's why they want me dead, Cathara. Not because I'm a criminal, but because I have proof of what they really are. Cathara's world tilted on its axis. Everything she had believed about the galactic order, about her species' rightful place as apex predators, about the natural hierarchy that justified their dominance, all of it crumbled under the weight of Morrison's evidence. The humans hadn't been rebelling against legitimate authority. They had been fighting for survival against systematic extermination. Why show me this? She demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. Why not just kill me and be done with it? Morrison's expression softened, and for the first time since their confrontation began, Cathara saw something almost like compassion in his eyes. Because you're not the real enemy here. You're just another weapon they've pointed at their problems. The question is, what are you going to do now that you know the truth? The cargo bay's automated systems continued their mechanical dance around them, but Cathara barely noticed. Her enhanced senses were focused entirely on Morrison, analyzing every micro-expression, every subtle shift in his neural patterns. He was giving her a choice, something no prey had ever done before. The data core behind you, Morrison said, gesturing toward a massive server array that Cathara had somehow failed to notice in her predatory focus. It's connected to every major communication network in the galaxy. One transmission, and this evidence reaches every inhabited system simultaneously. The hegemony can't suppress information that's already everywhere. Cathara turned to look at the server array, her mind racing through the implications. If Morrison was telling the truth, and every instinct told her he was, then activating that transmission would bring down the entire galactic government. It would expose her own species as genocidal monsters, destroy everything the Scran had built over 3 millennia of careful expansion. You could stop me, Morrison said quietly. Kill me right now, destroy the evidence, report back to your handlers that the human terrorist has been eliminated. Collect your bounty, restore your reputation, pretend none of this ever happened. The plasma rifle felt impossibly heavy in Cathara's hands. One shot would end this nightmare, would restore the comfortable certainty of a universe where predators hunted prey and the strong ruled the weak. All she had to do was pull the trigger. But you won't, Morrison continued, and there was something almost like pride in his voice. Because you're not just a predator, Cathara. You're a hunter. And hunters understand the difference between prey and innocent victims. The distinction hit her like a revelation. For 8 months, she had been thinking of Morrison as prey, something to be caught, killed, and consumed. But prey implied guilt, implied that the target deserved to be hunted. What did you call someone who was being hunted for trying to prevent genocide? The hegemony will never stop, Morrison said, moving toward the data core with deliberate slowness. They'll keep killing, keep expanding, keep justifying their actions with talk of natural order and genetic superiority. Unless someone stops them. Cathara's finger tightened on the plasma rifle's trigger. One shot, that's all it would take. But as she watched Morrison approach the transmission controls, she found herself thinking about the images on his datapad. 47 billion Zephyrians dead because they were deemed genetically inferior. How many other species had suffered the same fate? How many more would die if the hegemony's expansion continued unchecked? You humans, she said finally, her voice rough with suppressed emotion. You really don't know when to quit, do you? Morrison paused at the data core's control panel, his hand hovering over the transmission key. "No," he said simply. "We don't." Cathara lowered her weapon. The transmission began immediately. Data packets racing through quantum communication networks at faster than light speeds. Within minutes, the evidence would reach every major news outlet, every government archive, every public information system in the galaxy. The hegemony's crimes would be exposed to the light, and no amount of political maneuvering could put that particular genie back in its bottle. "What happens now?" Cathara asked, watching the transmission progress bar crawl toward completion. Morrison smiled, not the predatory grin of a successful hunter, but something warmer and infinitely more dangerous. "Now we find out what the galaxy looks like when the prey starts hunting back." As the transmission completed and alarms began blaring throughout Kepler Station, Cathara realized that her 8-month hunt was finally over. She had caught her prey at last, only to discover that she had been the one being hunted all along. The age of human persistence had begun.